It's not just Angelina Jolie's flawless face that makes her the most beautiful woman in the world. Her life is full of secrets and hurts that are so deep that no one dares touch them. The world has looked at every relationship she's had and every decision she's made. Crazy thing is that Jolie's heart has always belonged to Brad Pitt, even though a lot of people have knelt at her feet. Jolie thought he was her last chance to be safe. But everything turned into a horror she couldn't get away from. The man who cheated on her wasn't a good person to begin with, it turned out. Today, let's listen as Angelina Jolie talks about her unhappy 8-year marriage for the first time. The attention has never been on the story of a woman who has wounds that this story tells. Angelina Jolie was with her first beautiful love before she tied the knot with Brad Pitt. He saw her as the whole sky and the reason he believed in love before fate threw her into much bigger storms. Hackers is a strange movie about hackers and the internet. She walked slowly, as if she were still getting used to her life. She met Johnny Lee Miller, an English actor who was cool and spoke less than he spoke. Like a rock in the hazy, sparkling. It was like she didn't belong in the sea. During those tense days of shooting, their feelings grew slowly. When they were both still getting to know themselves. They would smoke cigarettes, lie on their backs on the studio roof, and watch the stars in the nights after shooting. They would also talk about the scars they were trying to hide. When she put her head on his shoulder and whispered, "I'm scared of growing up," her voice was shaking but full of faith. When she kissed him back, he said, "Let's stay 19 forever." The smell of cigarette smoke mixed with cheap shampoo was strangely sweet. A few months later, they did the craziest thing that being young can do, they got married. In March 1996, there was a Jolie wore only a white shirt, black pants, and wrote Miller's name on her chest with her own blood. It was a risky and beautiful act, like a vow too strong for words. That was her youth, bright, blind, and fragile. She once told a friend, "You can give up a little to make things special." They lived together for more than a year and a half, and every move, every moment was filled with audacity and courage. Their hearts were both loving and afraid, and each day was a feverish melody, with every smile and look full of passion, comfort, and understanding. Everything was so bright that people from the outside couldn't even begin to understand it. 3 years later, busy schedules, heavy roles, and many flights kept them apart. Johnny Lee Miller went back to England to focus on his own work, while Angelina starred in movies like Gia and Playing by Heart. The distance slowly turned into silence, and then separation. During that time, Angelina Jolie won an Emmy, a Golden Globe, and then an Oscar. Every time she went on stage, she looked for him in the front rows, but he was in England filming a TV show. Late-night calls at 3 a.m. turned into hurried messages, "I miss you like crazy." "Me too, but next week I have to fly again." And then there was a heavy silence that no words could fill. They got divorced in 1999 without any fights or bad feelings. Instead, they just looked at each other and said, "We were too young." The words floated like smoke, but they carried a quiet ache because the memories were too fresh to ever fade. 1999 also started a new chapter for Jolie. On the set of Pushing Tin, she met Billy Bob Thornton, a man 20 years older than her who was radiating reckless charm after having survived 5 marriages and a wild southern lifestyle. From the first moment, they were drawn to each other like magnets. Jolie was young and free, while Thornton was experienced and intense. They jumped into a fierce, unapologetic relationship. They got married in Las Vegas in May 2000, without any warning or publicity. There were no announcements or interviews, just the two of them making a silent promise. The picture of them hand in hand, wearing tiny vials of each other's blood around their necks, became a symbol of their unbridled passion. They got tattoos of each other's names, wrote music together, and went public as if nothing could scare them. But the flames eventually went out when Jolie adopted Maddox, a 7-month-old Cambodian boy. Thornton couldn't share the responsibility while she learned to live for someone else, not just love. The cracks got bigger, and by mid-2003, the marriage ended in silence. Jolie focused on humanitarian work, and Thornton went back to making music and independent films. Their once flaming love ended, leaving behind bittersweet memories and lessons about freedom, responsibility, and the cost of choosing to love. Even after they broke up, they kept in touch as people who used to share something deep but no longer do. At the Berlin Film Festival in 2012, Thornton said, "Angelina is a wonderful woman. She will see me as a friend, and I will love her until the end of my life." Jolie wrote the foreword for the Billy Bob tapes, A Cave Full of Ghosts, the same year. She called the time they spent together a. They had ended their fiery relationship, but they still respected each other and valued the peace they shared. For Jolie, that was enough to end that beautiful chapter. There was no anger or regret, just understanding. After leaving behind the wild passions of her youth, Angelina Jolie walked through another door that led to the man whose name would be forever linked to hers, Brad Pitt. This relationship not only changed her public image, but it also became the greatest and deepest love of her life, a rebirth after the storms of hard, unstable relationships. Angelina had been in a few short-lived relationships. Brad, on the other hand, was like a fire that couldn't be put out. He broke down all of her emotional walls and enthralled her at the same time. Her earlier breakups were so quiet and peaceful that no one noticed, no fights, accusations, or scandals, but they left deep marks on Jolie's soul. They taught her the difference between impulsive love and love that needs to be nurtured with responsibility, patience, and maturity. The silence and kindness with which they ended those relationships became her standard, a valuable lesson in how to keep your heart safe in a world full of traps. Smith, an action movie with chases, gunfights, and laughter, but deep down there were emotions that were kept in check. Brad Pitt played her co-star. Then, while still in what seemed like a stable marriage with Jennifer Aniston, a strange energy started to build on set, amidst the stage gunfire and explosions. It couldn't be hidden, no matter how hard they tried to focus on work. Jolie remembered that at first, they were both completely dedicated to their roles, but over time, an invisible thread connected them. It became a place where they talked, shared rare moments, and found something neither of them expected. Their hearts shook for each other in scenes that were made up, but the emotions were painfully real. In the past, Angelina said, "I just thought I would end up with this person." Brad said he felt an irrational, unbreakable connection with her, as if fate had stepped in. When Pitt's marriage ended in early 2005, everything went crazy. Their names were in every newspaper and on every TV show. Their name, Brialina, sounded like a fun name, but it carried the weight of the whole world. Everyone looked at, commented on, and wrote about their private lives. They quickly became Hollywood's most powerful couple, not just because of the attention, but also because of the causes they worked for together. That fierce and intense love came from two different souls, a woman who dared to live every emotion to the fullest and a man who was both strong and sensitive and knew how to honor that fire without putting it out. Every public appearance and step they took together felt like a declaration, both beautiful and fragile, that made the world unable to look away. For Jolie, this wasn't just love, it was a shining, painful, deeply emotional time in her life where she learned how to love, how to give her whole heart, and how to stand firm in the bright spotlight of fame. The couple had their daughter Shiloh in Namibia, choosing the most remote location possible to avoid the paparazzi. Brad cried when he saw that Shiloh's blue eyes were exactly the same as her mother's. Angelina whispered in his ear, "She's the proof we were right." That moment, under the distant sky and the whispering winds, became proof of a love that was both fierce and tender, joyful and terrifying because it was too delicate to hold. Then they had Pax, a boy from Vietnam, in 2007, and then the twins Knox and Vivian, born in France. Maddox and Zahara were also officially married. An 8-person family working together to help people across countries looked like a vivid painting, bright and fragile. Every meal, every flight, and every smile brought happiness and unity, but there was also a quiet fear that something so perfect might not last. But the pressure never stopped. Angelina's mother died of cancer in 2007, leaving a hole in her heart. For months, Angelina grew thin and curled up in Brad's arms, as if the only way for either of them to stay alive was to hold on to each other. In 2013, she learned that she carried the BR gene, which gave her an 87% chance of getting breast cancer. Brad stayed by her side through all 3 surgeries, holding her hand so tightly that his fingers turned white. Every look was filled with fear and love. In the recovery room, Angelina asked Brad in a shaking voice, "Do you still love me when I'm not whole?" Brad kissed her on the forehead and said, "I love the woman who chose to live for our children. You're my whole world, with or without anything." The smell of germs and the cold hospital lights made their love stronger at that very moment. In an interview with Vanity Fair in 2008, Jolie said that Brad was the best man she had ever met and the father she always wanted her children to have. She didn't just see Pitt as a partner, she saw him as a travel companion on a journey of exploring the world, art, architecture, and humanitarian duties. But sometimes, the desire to be better leads to the deepest cracks. Work pressure, societal expectations, and Hollywood's constant glare shook even the strongest hearts. Under all the happy moments, the shadow of fear always lingered. The fear that even the strongest love could end. In 2011, Angelina Jolie started a new journey. She tested herself as a director with the movie In the Land of Blood and Honey, which was about the wounds of the Bosnian War. The movie was a deep reflection of her humanitarian work. Brad Pitt walked with her on many projects, supporting her. Love and shared ideals made them a couple that people admired, as if they were two people who found in each other a belief in a better world. They got married in private at Chateau Marolles in southern France. Their 6 children, who all bore signs of their love and compassion, were the only ones who saw them and wrote their vows. Jolie called it a simple promise and an affirmation after 10 years together. But even at that point, there were already cracks in the relationship. Work pressure, busy schedules, and different parenting styles started to cause distance. Pitt became more interested in movies and investments, while Jolie focused on directing and humanitarian work. The media and public followed their every move, making the family bigger, turning a once busy home into something colder, quieter, and farther away. They were in a movie about a couple who were so unhappy they wanted to kill each other. They laughed and said it was all just acting, but deep down, they both knew they were reliving painful memories. Brad drank more to fill the void, and Angelina became quieter, withdrawing into loneliness and anxiety. They lived on different continents and could only talk on the phone late at night, but those calls were no longer "I miss you." They were heavy and silent. After all that, September 15, 2016, came like a sharp cold blade cutting through everything that was left between them. It happened on a private plane from Nice to Los Angeles. Brad was drunk and out of control. Later, Angelina said in court documents that he grabbed her by the throat, yelled at Maddox, and spilled beer on her and the kids. She hurt her back and elbow, and her heart and soul hurt. Maddox, who was only 15, stood between them, his eyes filled with fear and anger. When the plane landed, Angelina picked up the phone, her hands shaking, and called her lawyer. She filed for divorce 5 days later. Chateau Marolles, which had been their dream home, became a sign of the end. Angelina and the kids left, carrying fear and a heavy weight on their hearts. Brad later admitted he drank too much and behaved badly, but he denied physical violence. The FBI looked into it but did not press charges, which left a hollow legal conclusion. But for Angelina and the kids, the wounds were already deep and would never fully heal. Maddox never saw his father again. Pax, Zahara, and Shiloh slowly took the Pitt out of their names, as if closing the door on painful memories. Knox and Vivian, the youngest, though not yet 18, had quiet sadness and tired eyes whenever their father was mentioned. People around the world were shocked when they heard about the divorce. The couple, who had been seen as the picture of Hollywood love, had been broken up into sharp pieces. The public and the media were stunned, and fans felt like a beautiful dream had been dropped and scattered. Within hours, Sir Brangelina became famous all over the world, with millions of people trying to figure out what happened behind closed doors of what seemed like a perfect family. Their co-workers were shocked, and George Clooney was so shocked he couldn't believe it. People's reactions ranged from shock and grief to anger and criticism. As more information came out, people's views became more divided. Half of them supported Angelina, seeing her as a brave woman who ran away from danger to protect her children, while the other half questioned and debated fiercely about Brad Pitt's problems with Maddox. The divorce became an international show with no heroes and no real people involved. From 2016 to 2019, they were rarely seen together. They talked to each other through lawyers and therapists, which made their custody battle one of the most complicated and expensive in Hollywood. Pitt went to therapy to get sober and control his behavior, while Jolie chose to be quiet and focus on her 6 children and her humanitarian work. Many people thought that Jolie's silence wasn't a weapon, but a safe place for her children from the world's attention. In 2021, a temporary ruling gave Pitt 50-50 custody. But a few months later, the appeals court overturned it when they found out that the judge had ties to Pitt's legal team. The case started over, and for the next 2 years, the custody battle went on, although it was quiet and painful. Finally, in 2024, Jolie was given full custody, while Pitt was given supervised visitation rights. After almost 8 years of fighting, a new front opened: assets and trusts. The Miraval estate, where they got married, became the center of this second war. Pitt owned 60% of the 1,000-acre vineyards, historic chateau, and winery, which had been Brangelina's dream home. They filmed ads there, raised their kids there, planted grapes there, and held private meetings there. When love ends, places that used to be full of laughter become memorials to loss, broken dreams, and cracks that can't be fixed. In 2021, Angelina Jolie sold her Miral shares to Tanit Dando, a member of the Stolen Group, for $67 million. She didn't tell Pitt about the sale, which led to his lawsuit. He said she broke their agreement not to sell shares without both of their consent. Pitt also said that Jolie's sale to Yuri Shufler, a Russian businessman with ties to Moscow, forced him to work with someone he didn't trust. He accused her of acting to hurt him by forcing him into deals he didn't want to make. Jolie's lawyer